Take a look at this. This is a roll of duct tape. Nice catch. It's very adhesive. It's ubiquitous. It's something that we fix and repair all kinds of things with. And it's so good you don't even need scissors to cut it. You can actually tape a car tire and drive down the road safely. Did you know a completely disassembled car, reassembled with duct tape, can drive at over 90 kilometers per hour safely? Duct tape actually saves lives. We saw this in countless MacGyver episodes. And that's not fiction. You can actually build ultralight planes out of it. Duct tape also works at 30,000 feet. I hope. Duct tape is so adhesive, it works in zero gravity. It played a key role in saving the lives of the Apollo 13 crew when they had to build this contraption to remove the carbon dioxide from their lifeboat. It's now standard issue in all NASA missions, and it's one of the few materials NASA has never been able to improve upon. Now, it's also not just a repair tool. It's been used to make everything from prom dresses to making power adapters work when traveling to Cape Town. Duct tape babysitter? What makes this tape so versatile, so useful, so apt to become anything that you can use? Well, it's self-sufficient, it's adhesive, it's lightweight, it's waterproof, weatherproof, it's cheap. I mean, if you think about it, those are all great qualities of designers, except for cheap, of course. It may seem like the most basic construction material ever, and we call it duct tape because we think it was invented to be used on air ducts, AKA it's never meant to be seen by anybody. But that's not where the real name came from. And it's in the story of the origin that the beauty of duct tape emerges. In 1942, the United States were sending hundreds of thousands of young soldiers overseas to fight in World War II. Now, at the height of the war effort, President Franklin Roosevelt received a letter from a mother whose sons were both serving in the US Navy. Vesta Stout had gone to work in a munitions factory to do her part to help her sons and other servicemen. Her job was inspecting the boxes that cartridges of ammo went into. She taped them up and made sure they were waterproof. Now, a tab of tape was left loose so that it could be pulled open to open the ammunitions box. However, this paper tape was so thin, it frequently broke when soldiers tried to open it, leaving them frantically scrambling to open the boxes while they're under enemy fire. Vesta had an idea of how to solve it. But every person she mentioned this to at the factory just shrugged it off. This was 1941. There was no email, there was no Twitter, it wasn't even a staff directory. All she had was pen, paper, an idea, and the name of the President of the United States. And so Vesta wrote him. She said, I have 2 sons out there somewhere. You have sons in the service also. We can't let them down by giving a box of cartridges that takes a minute or more to open, the enemy taking their lives. I didn't know who to write to, Mr. President. Your boys, my boys, and every man that uses the rifle grenade, that this package of cartridges may be taped with the correct tape. So Roosevelt sent Vesta's letter to the production board in Washington, D.C., and she got this letter back. The Ordnance Department has not only pressed the matter, but has now informed us that the change you have recommended has been approved with the comment that the idea is of exceptional merit. The final product was named duct tape because it was waterproof like a duck. It was also made with cotton duck fabric. So in reality, it really should be called duct tape. Since then, duct tape in all of its various spellings has been used to seal, repair, and fix just about anything you can imagine. Now, although it was originally inspired for one specific problem, its strength and the versatility of duct tape made it a catch-all go-to for nearly any problem, whether a hole in your shoe or a hole in your spacesuit. It wasn't until I was studying design at the Rhode Island School of Design that a professor completely changed my opinion of duct tape forever. He said, when you spot duct tape in the world, that's the sign of a design opportunity. What he meant by that is that it's an indicator that something's broken, that there's something that was designed with a flaw, and that there's an opportunity to improve it. For designers, our job is to look out into the world and say, why is it that way? And duct tape is this amazing beacon for us. It's like design SOS. That if you call yourself a designer, you have a responsibility to respond to. So let me show you an example of what I think is a fabulous duct tape moment. In the 1960s in India, there were as many as 400,000 people who were diagnosed with the polio virus every year. Victims lost limbs to the disease, with amputation most commonly being below the knee. Now, the only available solutions were either cheap homemade crutches or expensive imported limbs. A craftsman was teaching art history at the Jaipur hospital. And while he didn't see actual duct tape, he did see a lengthy, cumbersome process and a system for patients, and recognized it for exactly what it was. It was a makeshift duct tape solution. So, heeding the call of the beacon, he decided there had to be a better way. Under the guidance of the head of the Department of Orthopedics, he designed an artificial foot made of vulcanized rubber, wooden leg, and the Jaipur foot was born. At $28, this was supremely inexpensive and water-resistant, and it was quick to fit. Usually, fittings happened in a single setting, and the patient would come in on crutches and leave walking, bike riding, or climbing a tree the same day. Patients were even provided with a return fare home if they needed it. Founded in 1975, the Jaipur organization is dedicated to providing these prosthetic limbs to anyone who needs it free of charge. Today, the organization provides over 20,000 limbs per year. Now, in collaboration with the Stanford University, the organization has also developed a new knee joint called the Jaipur knee. This $45 prosthesis is made out of self-lubricating nylon. It's stable and very durable. And now, compared to equivalents in the US, like a titanium replacement, those can cost upwards of $10,000. The Jaipur knee, by the way, was named by Time magazine as one of the best 50 inventions in 2010. Now, spotting duct tape examples, whether it's a product, an object, a system, or an experience, provided these key turning points throughout my life. For example, when I was younger, my parents would often take me to my sister's swim meets at the neighborhood pool in Atlanta, Georgia. And early on, I noticed one fairly simple design flaw in the layout of the pool, is that the spectators sat on one end of the pool, and the refreshments were all the way over on the other end of the pool. So this meant that people had to walk the entire length of this Olympic-sized pool in order to get a snack, basically broadcasting to all the attendees and parents, I'm more interested in a hot dog than I am in watching your child swim. So suddenly, I had an idea. What if I strapped a tray of snacks around my neck and I brought snacks to hungry spectators? So I found a large box lid. I used my belt as a strap, and I negotiated a deal with the guy at the refreshment stand. Sure, I looked absolutely ridiculous, but by the end of the summer, I earned more than enough money to fund my entire baseball card collection. And I got to practice looking completely ridiculous, which would later prove invaluable. So little did my 9-year-old self know, but these were early lessons in thinking like a designer. So, of course, there was a duct tape SOS that led to the creation of Airbnb. As designers, we saw a break in the system. There's a design conference in town, and all the hotels are sold out. We have extra space and need to make rent. So I pulled an airbed out of the closet to accommodate designers. My roommate Brian and I created a makeshift solution, our very first airbed and breakfast website. which over time evolved into the design solution that became Airbnb. So rather than polyethylene, cloth, and adhesive, we had people, an apartment, and the internet. As our company grew and we gained clarity on our mission, which is to create a community so that anyone can belong anywhere, we started to wonder, how could we expand our services and mission to reach more people? Even those without a home or even those without necessarily the means to travel. So we established a dedicated team inside Airbnb to look out in the world and see how we could help. What are the other areas of duct tape? So the group's comprised of software engineers and of operations experts. We are seeking to leverage Airbnb's core competencies. So when we think about our contributions out in the world, we ask questions like this. First, what can we bring to the world? What are we well positioned through our knowledge, our resources, our skills to apply to problem solving? In our case, the first and probably the most immediate answer is hospitality in the form of short-term accommodations. It's our signature strength in helping people turn their homes into a source of income, a source of experiences, and a connection to the world. Our second strength is our ability to create complete trust between strangers who've never met. Tonight, just on Airbnb, there's 700,000 people either staying in a stranger's home or welcoming one into theirs. 15,000 of them are right here in Cape Town. Our third strength is the global scale. Where are those 700,000 people coming from? They're either coming from or staying in 191 countries. So over the last decade, we've learned a lot about how to help people feel comfortable in a new city or a new country. So once we have an idea of what it is, what our strengths we can leverage, we then ask the next question. Where is it most useful? What kind of duct tape can we apply using our skills? So that overlapping area in the center of these two questions is duct tape gold. It's the combination of what we do best, where it's needed the most. So over the last 5 years, as an example, we've leveraged our strengths and our global community to provide aid when natural disasters strike. So from fires or floods or hurricanes to typhoons, our platform can connect those displaced with free rooms volunteered by our hosts. So this special use case for short-term housing has been deployed now in over 17 countries. And it revealed to us the natural generosity that already exists in our community. Here's a tweet from Hurricane Sandy a couple of years ago. An Airbnb host asked how to donate her room through Airbnb for those on the East Coast who have had to evacuate their homes. This tweet is the intersection of what we can bring to the world and where it's more useful. Now, some of these use cases you can plan for. Natural disasters usually happen without very much notice. But other things we could recognize in regards to patterns that we could proactively anticipate greater needs. So our team started asking the question, what was the next most urgent use case we could take on? It became clear fairly quickly. The answer was refugees. There are more displaced people in the world today than ever before. And according to the United Nations refugee agencies, estimates say the number will grow to 325 million people by 2044. This is an occurrence that we can begin to anticipate and plan around. So we started to work on this issue last year. We provided relief housing to relief workers from Mercy Corps and the International Rescue Committee, known as the IRC. And then we did what designers do. We went out into the world to meet the people we were designing for, to the front lines, to better understand the problem. So Andrew and Kyle went to the Greek and Macedonian border. Cameron and Alex, they visited the largest Syrian camp in Jordan. And I had a chance to visit Kenya and Rwanda. And in each conversation, we'd ask one of the most powerful design research questions I've come to learn. What's the biggest challenge you're facing? So we balanced this research with also going to cities as well, like Berlin and New York City. And upon returning, we synthesized all our findings, all of our observations and our research, and we identified the duct tape signals that we felt uniquely suited for. The area we thought we could have immediate impact was an issue that we learned about in the United States regarding short-term housing, when a family first enters. You see, in some US cities, after years of a vetting process, their accommodations can fall through last minute. So the government's forced to put them in cheap motels, which is not only a cold experience, but it actually costs the US government $40 million a year. So we saw this as a good starting place. And we looked at the whole ecosystem to figure out, from governments to NGOs to volunteers, what worked and what didn't. We ended up creating a platform that matches asylum seekers in need of short-term accommodation with people who have accommodations to offer. Here's how it works. So on one side, you have those that need short-term housing, refugees, those from natural disasters, and potentially other groups in the future. We work closely with partners who vet those candidates for housing. And on the other side, we have hosts. There's over 3 million homes on Airbnb worldwide. And there's a lot of homes that aren't on Airbnb, but people who want to help. So we created a way for them to join and offer their home. And we bring these two groups together in a platform that can scale. And by the way, when the Trump US travel ban went into effect, more than 200 people found free housing through Airbnb. But what's really amazing is that over 5,000 people volunteered their rooms for free just that weekend alone. So, getting involved is as simple as filling out this form on our site. You can actually even specify the cause you want to support. There's some people who signed up that were already hosts, and some people actually told us that I would never host a paying guest on your site, but if you have a refugee family in need, you can call on me. Our first volunteer host in Oakland here describes her experience hosting one weekend.
My name is Marianne Kondrup, and I'm an Airbnb host out of Oakland, California. It's a lot of fun to host regular Airbnb guests like families and visitors to the region, but hosting a refugee felt somehow like even more of a human experience. Sharing my house with someone who really needed a home in sort of the true sense of the word was a very different feeling. Honestly, in my personal opinion, if you're already an Airbnb host and you're already obviously willing to share your home with strangers, I don't see why hosting a refugee would be any different other than adding on the additional human experience.
Another host told us it's been a joy to host such beautiful families from places like Syria, Yemen, and the Republic of Congo. And as of today, 15,000 people have volunteered their homes in all corners of the world. Each of these pink dots is someone who's volunteered their home for this cause. And the IRC is chomping at the bit. They told us, we're thrilled this opportunity is available because of the sheer number of people needing short-term stays. We hope more people will offer their homes. Over the next 5 years, we aim to help provide short-term housing for 100,000 people in need. It's a warmer welcome. It's a cheaper, safer solution to the problem. And we hope to keep expanding the program to add more volunteer hosts, more partner agencies, and one day make the platform available to the entire world. So I hope you'll join us in this endeavor. If you want to learn more, you can go to airbnb.com/weaccept. So one of the other projects that we've been working on is called Supper with Us. And it's a program that allows people to host a refugee family for dinner. It's a great way for people who are unable to offer a place to stay, but still want to contribute. And for those who have the space, but maybe aren't quite comfortable hosting, it can help them overcome one of the key obstacles that get in the way, the us versus them preconception, the bias, conscious or not, about refugees. So you've probably heard the growing concern that many Americans have about who asylum seekers are, about which ones, if any, should be allowed into the United States. And they see these people as very unlike themselves, very different, as people with whom maybe they have little in common. So this past winter, over the course of just 2 months, nearly 100 suppers were organized by members of the Airbnb community. We received countless testimonials from both guests and hosts who shared food, stories, and laughs, and sometimes tears together. One host told us that a lot of our assumptions and preconceived notions about refugees were dispelled, and we had the opportunity to connect as people. That's basically exactly what we were looking for. Another told us that the supper changed her life, and immediately after hosting the dinner, she started volunteering at the local resettlement agency. She basically showed up for a month without anything to do, and after a month, she ended up joining as a part-time employee. One Jewish family hosted a Muslim refugee family for Thanksgiving, and the Jewish father concluded that his Muslim counterpart was a real mensch, which is Yiddish for a really great guy. And one host wrote us this email: Cameron, thank you for the opportunity. My Trump-supporting parents joined our family and our Afghani guests and were mesmerized by their story. If you'd like to host a supper with us too, here's how to let us know: supperwith.us. We're eager to see this go to the next level. And who knows, someday, maybe we'll be able to host a supper with us in the White House. So during the course of all this research, we learned that once a refugee is settled into a home, the next greatest thing is establishing a source of income, a source of livelihood as part of the reintegrating process. And we learned this is top of mind for the 1.4 million refugees living in the country of Jordan. Over the last few years, Jordan has seen an influx of people from neighboring countries. In fact, 1 in 3 residents aren't citizens. That's 1/3 of the entire country. So naturally, there's a diversity of people from Sudan to Syria and Palestine, and the capital of Amman has doubled in just the last 5 years. But this influx also places a burden on national resources, and refugees are willing and able, but usually not allowed, to seek employment. So how could we help these people who are eager to share their skills, passions, and talents? Way back in 2013, when we were just starting to explore what we could offer beyond accommodations, my team and I spent 2 months in New York brainstorming possibilities. One of the limitations of Airbnb at the time was that it was only useful to people who either had the money to travel or the space to host. But we'd often hear people say, I want to share my city with guests, yet there was no means to do so. So how could they too share their city with guests? So we came up with this idea of a marketplace of experiences where residents could share their knowledge and passions with travelers. The Experience Marketplace, as it was known, gave locals who were excited about meeting new people another way to extend hospitality. So we rolled out an early prototype in Paris and San Francisco, and eventually it became a part of our current trips product. Little did we know that this original prototype would eventually enable us to help people in Jordan create a source of income by sharing their passions and talents with visitors. So what you're looking at here are some of the amazing experiences available in Amman today. This allows visitors to discover the city through the eyes of locals in a very authentic way. And it allows residents, no matter what their background might be, to earn a livelihood. It also allows displaced people, amongst others, to connect with the world and contribute rather than being forced into idleness or isolation. So meet Taz. She's one of the experienced hosts who loves to cook. Her life hasn't been that easy for her and her family since they relocated to Jordan. They're not allowed to work, and making ends meet is often difficult. So through this, she's able to support her family and keep her dream alive of one day getting a scholarship to travel abroad. There are literally dozens of stories just like Taz of people who offer everything from belly dancing to Arabic calligraphy to sessions with the local rock band, and indeed, of course, Middle Eastern cooking classes, all providing ways of improving their livelihoods. And since Experience Marketplace is independent from your accommodations, you can stay here or you can book one of these no matter where you're staying. So the next time you visit Jordan, your stay can support those who need it the most. To learn more, you can go to airbnb.com/Amman. Now, the last project I want to share brings us to Japan. Japan is experiencing a nationwide population crisis. the country is declining by 800,000 people per year for the next 20 years. This is having drastic consequences on the Japanese economy, society, and especially rural life. I actually saw this firsthand when I was in a village near a town called Kaga last year. 7 out of the 8 homes here are empty because older generations are passing away and younger generations are moving to cities. This is a national issue. Thousands of other villages in Japan are experiencing the exact same thing. The Japanese government's tried to fix it by offering free housing to young couples if they'll stay in a village for 5 years, but it's not actually working that well. One duct tape solution, which has had an impact, came from one of our amazing hosts on Airbnb, Megumi.
もう限界集落って言われてました。当時と娘のあかり2人だけのとてもシンプルだけれども寂しい暮らしをしていました。私は家主さんとご近所に家を直して村を活性化してはっていうふうに相談しました。いらっしゃいいらっしゃい。協力をしてもらってたくさん協力してくれてたくさんいろんなものを持ってきてくれて Airbnb のホストを始めました。今は世界中から旅人が来ます。旅をしていく生活に入っていくような形で過ごしていってもらいます。何よりも娘のあかりの世界が広がりました。世界にいろんな家族ができたような気分でいます。
The cool thing is that now Megumi engages other people in her village to help with things like translation or cooking food. And better yet, it changes the way that residents feel about themselves and their village. I mean, if you think about it, when people are moving out of your town, it's like a vote of no confidence. But when you have travelers who are coming from around the world to see your town, it changes everything. It gives a sense of purpose again and something to be excited about. So last year, while working on an exhibition in Japan, we heard the call of a duct tape beacon. Here's how it happened. My team and I were working with an up-and-coming architect named Go Hasegawa to show people what the home of the future could look like. And we knew we wanted it to be about a shared home, one that could support the relationship between a guest and a host. Hasegawa showed us it could be more than that. It could actually support the relationship between guest, host, and community. As he described the issues rural communities were facing, we thought of what Megumi had done for her village. An idea emerged. What if Airbnb partnered with a local village, a local community, to help revitalize it by creating a shared home for residents and travelers alike? This is a concept we came up with. What you're looking at is a floor plan of the first floor of our house. And the first floor is the guest kitchen, it's the living room, it's the dining room. It's also the community center. The first floor is meant to be shared by guests and community. This is a way to heighten the interaction between guests and hosts. We ended up presenting this concept to a couple of villages around Japan, and one, south of Osaka, called Yoshino, loved it so much they donated land to us to install the house after the exhibition. And because they're a center of craftsmanship, the house was built almost entirely out of things you could see from the village, from the wooden walls to the light fixtures to the tableware. Yoshino is a birthplace of wood craftsmanship in Japan with 6 generations of woodworkers. And if you've ever been to any amazing temple in Japan, there's a really good chance that that wood came from this tiny village. They take wood very seriously here. The guardian of the forest lives with the trees and decides when a tree is ready to be cut down. Each stump is then stamped with the signature of the worker. It's an important ceremony. The forest is treated with respect, and the use of natural resources doesn't come lightly. And this is how the Yoshino Cedar House came to life. It's designed for the ground up to be shared. It's a concept that benefits the entire community and can be replicated in its own unique way around the world. It takes the traditional Airbnb model of guests stay in a home, and that income goes to a host. And it turns the whole thing upside down. Guests come to the Yoshiner Cedar House, and unlike single hosts, the Cedar House is managed by a cooperative of hosts made up of members of the community. And with each stay, funds go into a community investment fund, and the cooperative decides how the funds get used. So another way to say it is 97% of revenue generated by you staying there directly benefits the community and its people. So when you visit, who will you meet inside the Cedar House? You'll meet the gentleman who runs the sake brewery, the woman who runs the chopstick factory, the soy sauce maker, the sushi maker, the washi maker, the print maker. It's a town full of artisans and craftsmen. Everything is local. In fact, fishermen right in front of the house on the river go out each morning, and the catch of the day becomes your sushi at night. What's really extraordinary is that all of this happened in less than a year. It's now listed on Airbnb as of 2 weeks ago. It's already been booked dozens of times. And we hope to learn from this endeavor ways that other rural areas throughout Japan could benefit, and eventually perhaps other countries too. So I hope you'll get a chance to visit the Cedar House. To learn more about this one, you can go to yoshinercedarhouse.com. In fact, I hope you'll join us on any of the initiatives that I've talked about. As we work to scale these initiatives, we see a future where rural areas can thrive from guests who wish to experience what they have to offer, where more displaced people are welcomed with a host in a home, and where locals can share their passions and their talents with visitors from around the world. I'd be thrilled if you signed up as a host. I'd be thrilled if you hosted a dinner with Supper with Us to welcome refugees and help them feel like they belong. The thing here is that duct tape isn't a permanent solution. It's a short-term fix. It's an indicator of a bigger underlying problem with an object, an experience, or a system. When we see those opportunities, it's our responsibility as designers to do something about it or tell someone who can. I know design won't solve all the world's problems, but if we play our part, we will spot enough of this to make a difference. So my question for you is this: what duct tape will you spot next? I hope you let me know. Let's get going. Thank you.